Okay, so you want to own an amusement park. Buy a massive tract of land. Install towering steel roller coasters. Fire up the cotton candy machines. And watch thousands of smiling families happily pay a $75 admission fee while the midsummer sun shines. That is the dream in your head, and on paper, it sounds like the ultimate summer profit engine. Walk into any premier regional theme park on a scorching, clear Saturday afternoon in July. The visual story is overwhelming success. The parking lot is overflowing with cars paying $30 just to park. The premier hypercoaster has a 90-minute queue. Guests are happily waiting 30 minutes for $16 chicken tender baskets and $18 souvenir refill cups. Private, shaded cabanas near the water rides, little more than simple canvas tents, are renting for $400 a day, and parents are happily handing over credit cards for every upcharge. You watch that scene, the laughter, the noise, the sheer volume of humanity, and you think, this place is a mint. Hundreds of thousands of people, astronomical prices, and relatively cheap electricity for the rides. Simple. Here's the problem. You are looking at the visible surface of an industry defined by brutal hyperseasonality, astronomical fixed operational overhead, and a capital expenditure requirement so intense it would make a tech CEO blush. The truth is that an amusement park is not really an entertainment business. It is a highly leveraged, extreme seasonal utility company that happens to use adrenaline as its product. And the moment you understand that an outdoor amusement park must generate 100% of its annual operating revenue, satisfy all investors, and service substantial debt in a narrow 100 to 120-day window, while paying fixed costs 365 days a year, everything about how amusement parks make money and how they quietly collapse under the weight of their own complexity starts to make total sense. Let's start with what it actually takes to get the first steel coaster operational. Before a single guest passes through the turnstile, you have to survive the capital development phase. Developing a new, modern, competitor-grade regional theme park is among the most capital-intensive commercial real estate ventures on Earth per square foot. First is the land and civil engineering. A viable modern amusement park requires a massive 150 to 400 acres of commercially zoned land to accommodate rides, standard operations, massive parking lots, safety buffers, and administrative facilities. In a secondary or suburban market near a major metro corridor, acquiring 250 acres of usable land can consume $10 million to $30 million. Then comes the specific utility infrastructure. And this is where first-time owners face their first major financial shock. A roller coaster does not plug into a standard outlet. The entire site infrastructure must be developed from scratch to handle industrial-grade high-voltage power. A single major launch coaster can draw megawatts of power in seconds during acceleration. You are not just building a park. You are developing a specialized power substation and distribution grid. This phase includes grading, structural foundations for rides that must meet seismic and wind requirements, massive concrete basins for water rides, and an extensive underground matrix of reinforced utility lines for power, filtration, and communication. This dirt and pipes phase, completely invisible to the guest, routinely costs between $40 million and $80 million before the first vertical ride column is bolted into place. Then come the attractions. Modern amusement parks do not survive on generic carnival rides. Consumers demand signature, world-class steel roller coasters. They expect multi-launch experiences, massive gigacoaster, drops exceeding 300 feet, complex hydraulic and pneumatic launching systems, and highly themed dark rides with animatronics. A single modern steel coaster can cost $20 million to $35 million to design, manufacture, and install. A top-tier themed dark ride can easily reach $40 million to $60 million. Outfitting a new, competitive regional park with a balanced lineup of rides and themed areas demands $150 million to $300 million just for the primary hardware and installation. Add extensive landscaping, concrete midways, turnstiles, sophisticated POS and ticketing systems, commercial kitchens, retail storefronts, and a $20 million pre-opening marketing blitz, and developing a new, regional theme park routinely demands $350 million to $600 million in total upfront capital investment. Now, let's look at the core financial engine. How does an amusement park actually generate cash once the gates open? Most outsiders assume parks survive purely on the gate ticket price. In reality, unless you are a small, generic park, general admission is merely the cover charge to enter the real monetization ecosystem. The front gate pays to keep the power running and the staff paid. The in-park spending creates the actual profit. The revenue engine rests on 5 distinct pillars. Pillar 1, general admission and season passes. Single-day general admission tickets typically range from $65 to $110. However, savvy operators rely heavily on season passes and membership programs. Season passes, perhaps $100 to $180, are rarely sold for more than the price of 2 visits. Why? Because season pass sales are collected primarily in March, April, and May, providing critical preseason cash flow to fund spring maintenance, ride testing, and staff onboarding before the gates open. Furthermore, season pass holders are the core customers who visit multiple times, driving Pillar 2. Pillar 2, food and beverage, F&B. After walking miles on concrete and screaming for hours in 90-degree heat, guests are a captive, dehydrated, and hungry audience. Because health codes and park rules strictly prohibit outside food and coolers, the park commands total monopoly pricing power. A $16 cheeseburger basket, which costs perhaps $3.50 in food cost, delivers gross margins of 80% to 85%. Fountain sodas and souvenir refill cups, costing pennies in syrup and plastic, are the highest margin items in the entire business. A well-run F&B operation is the primary profit center, generating 30% to 40% of total park revenue. Pillar 3, ancillary rentals, cabanas, and lockers. Shade is quietly the most profitable square footage in the park. Shaded cabanas in the water park section or on the main midway are little more than simple, low-cost canvas tents with few lounge chairs, costing perhaps $6,000 to construct. Yet, they rent for $250 to $450 per day throughout the peak season. A bank of 40 cabanas at 80% occupancy generates over $1 million in virtually pure gross margin annually from an asset, with near-zero ongoing maintenance cost. Similarly, electronic locker banks deliver hundreds of thousands of dollars in high-margin cash by charging $15 to $25 per day for simple digital storage. Pillar 4, parking and upcharges. Charging $30 to $40 per car on a paved lot you already own is virtually pure profit. Upcharge experiences, such as on-ride photo downloads, $25 each, midway skill games with cheap plush prizes, and virtual queue skip-the-line passes, perhaps $80 to $150 additional per day, provide crucial high-margin revenue boosts, turning a standard guest into a premium spender. Pillar 5, retail. Sunscreen, forgotten towels, flip-flops, keychains, and highly marked up t-shirts are essentials that desperate parents buy at a 300% markup. On paper, this sounds like an unstoppable revenue machine. Now, let's look at what can go wrong, because the operational traps in this business are brutal. The first and most ruthless risk is extreme seasonality and weather dependency. An outdoor amusement park in a non-coastal U.S. climate has a strictly defined operating calendar, Memorial Day weekend to Labor Day weekend. That is roughly 100 possible operating days. Within that narrow window, the weather dictates your financial destiny. If it rains on a Tuesday, you lose some revenue. If it rains on 3 consecutive Saturdays in July, your entire season's net profit margin can be completely wiped out. Attendance plummets by 80% to 95% on overcast, chilly, or rainy summer days. Yet, on those rainy days, your fixed infrastructure utility base management salaries, and standard maintenance do not pause. The second trap is massive fixed operational expenses. Keeping a park safe and running consumes staggering resources 365 days a year. Industrial pumps and motor generators running world-class roller coasters consume thousands of dollars in high-voltage electricity every single day. Specialized hydraulic oils, chemical sanitation, and lighting systems run $30,000 to $60,000 per month. The annual property taxes and liability insurance alone for a major park are astronomical fixed burdens. The third hurdle is massive seasonal labor requirements and high liability insurance. A regional theme park requires 150 to 300 full-time staff, but 1,500 to 3,000 seasonal employees, primarily teenagers in high school or college, to function. Every turnstile, concession stand, gift shop, and ride-loading platform needs staffing. A major coaster requires a 6 to 8 person crew to run efficiently at peak capacity. Recruiting, training, certifying, and managing thousands of temporary, seasonal workers every single spring in a tight labor market is an annual administrative nightmare. Then comes the insurance bill. Combining slippery concrete, massive vertical heights, high-voltage electricity, complex machinery, and thousands of unsupervised children creates a perfect storm of risk. Commercial general liability, patron accident insurance, and high payout liability coverage for a regional amusement park routinely cost $400,000 to $900,000 every single year. Now, let's put all of these moving parts together and look at the actual numbers over a full operating year for a newly capitalized mid-sized regional theme park. Imagine a new 200-acre regional park with 6 major steel coasters for smaller family rides, a comprehensive water park section, 40 rental cabanas, and full F&B/retail facilities. Total development cost, $400 million. Financed with $160 million in equity, 40%, and a $240 million commercial construction loan at 7.5% interest over 20 years. Annual debt service, roughly $23,240,000 per year. Let's walk through 2 distinct operational scenarios. Scenario 1, the thriving, optimal summer. The season experiences 90 operating days with hot, dry weather and minimal rainouts. A new hypercoaster drives high engagement. Total seasonal attendance reaches 1.8 million guests. Front gate and season passes, average blended ticket yield of $45, $81 million. Food and beverage, $16 spend per cap at 75% margin, $28,800,000. Cabana and locker rentals, $5,200,000. Upcharges, games and retail, $11 spend per cap, $19,800,000. Parking revenue, $28 blended fee, $11,200,000. Total gross revenue, $146 million. Now, subtract operating expenses. Seasonal labor and management payroll, $35 million. Cost of goods sold, F&B and retail, $9,500,000. Chemicals, utilities, and power load, $9,800,000. Property taxes and municipal fees, $6,200,000. Liability insurance and safety audits, $2,800,000. Marketing and digital acquisition, $8 million. Facility maintenance and off-season winterization, $6,500,000. Mandatory capital replacement reserve, fiberglass and pumps, $7 million. Total operating expenses, $84,800,000. Net operating income, NOI $146 million to $84,800,000 equals $61,200,000. Subtract the annual debt service, $61,200,000. NOI, $23,240,000. Debt service equals $37,960,000 pre-tax net cash flow. On a $160 million equity check, that represents an astounding 23.7% cash-on-cash return. When the weather and demand cooperate, the extreme financial leverage of a new park produces massive windfalls. Now, let's look at what happens when the market turns. Scenario 2, the soft market, high-volatility summer. A national economic recession hits, cutting corporate travel and luxury leisure spend. A new major competitor opens down the road. High fuel prices make driving difficult. Attendance plummets by 30% to 1.26 million guests. Front gate and season passes, $39 blended yield due to heavy discounting, $49,140,000. Food and beverage, $13 spend per cap, $16,380,000. Cabana and locker rentals, severe drop in demand, $2,400,000. Upcharges, retail and parking, $12 spend per cap, $15,120,000. Total gross revenue, $83,040,000. Now, look at the expenses. You can trim food inventory and some lifeguard hours, but your fixed base, off-season costs, full-time salaries, and insurance remain stubborn. Adjusted labor and payroll, $32 million. Cost of goods sold, F&B and retail, $6,200,000. Chemicals, utilities, and power load, baseline circulation load $9 million. Property taxes and insurance, unchanged $9 million. Marketing and maintenance, $13,500,000. Mandatory capital reserve, $7 million. Total operating expenses, $76,700,000. Net operating income, NOI $83,040,000 to $76,700,000 equals $6,340,000. Now, subtract the exact same annual debt service, $6,340,000, NOI, $23,240,000, debt service, equals minus $16,900,000 net cash deficit. Read that number again. A 30% decline in attendance didn't just trim the owner's profit. It created a staggering $17 million annual cash deficit. Because the bank's mortgage does not pause when a recession hits, the owner must write a nearly $20 million personal check out of pocket just to prevent the bank from foreclosing on a massive, empty park during the winter. So, why do people build amusement parks? Because the successful operators understand the golden rule of amusement economics. An amusement park is not an operational playground. It is an extreme financial lever. Successful operators do not just pray for sunshine. They pre-sell 60% of their revenue before Memorial Day through aggressive season pass programs and corporate buyout events. They build indoor components to expand their operating calendar. They run their F&B and upcharge operations with ruthless retail discipline, and they structure their debt with massive cash cushions and interest reserves to survive the inevitable 2-year rainy cycle. The towering roller coasters get the crowds through the gate on a hot July afternoon. The underlying financial discipline and massive cash reserves are the only reason there are trains on the track next summer.